All right. All right. First question. How do I set up the API fields for FUB integration? Yeah, so two different ways. So if you're in, if it's already hooked up, you can hit this little button, but let's go over here to more and go under follow-up boss. And then we're going to go to the contact sync. So it depends on which fields you want to sync. If you want to sync the fields and follow-up boss down on the lower left-hand side of the screen, I really don't advise doing that, but that's this field data. The reason I don't is because those fields should be things that don't change in follow-up boss. Those should be like links to YLOPO stars or birthdays, anniversaries, kids' names, things that just aren't going to change by transaction. If you did want to sync data there, though, you would open this up, you can hit sync fields, and then you can choose your API field mapping. I already have some created. If you don't have some created, you would come over here to the templates, and then you come down to API field map templates, and then you would come over here to add new. And this is all recorded, so if I'm going a little fast, you can always go back and refer to this. So follow-up boss. And now you're going to say contact fields. So contact fields are the ones in the bottom left on follow-up boss. The deal fields are the ones in the actual deal. You would want to click contact fields for what I'm showing you right now. You would choose the API. So whether it's the team member or the agent or whoever you're syncing to, hopefully it's an admin. That's usually the best if you have an admin person that's your TC. And then your template name, and you can create that. Here, let me actually just do it so you can see an example. And then what it's going to do is you're going to come in here to the example one and edit it. And it's going to show you all the fields that you have set up over in follow-up boss. So these are all the fields set up in follow-up boss. And now you're going to match them to the fields you want in open to close to sync over to the follow-up boss field. So the ones that are already there, we're pulling from follow-up boss. The ones that you're choosing are the ones in open to close that you're going to want to sync to these. Now, like I said, I don't really advise. That was the way we used to have it set up because we didn't have deal fields yet. Follow-up boss hadn't created those. So now that follow-up boss has deal fields, we have a much better process. You're going to go under the more tab. You're going to go to follow-up boss, go under the deal sync. And this, once you sync your deal or connect an existing deal, you're going to have all those fields here. It's going to show you all the fields coming from your property over to the deal fields. The way that you're going to set this up, because you're going to have to choose the field mapping template again here. So just remember that these are two different types, whether you're in contact sync or deal sync, these are syncing to two different places. So let me go back over to the template screen, and we're going to go to same way, API field, except for this time when you create it, you're going to choose follow-up boss, but then you're going to choose deal fields. Okay. So come down here to add them again. The template is going to be example deal. We're going to create this, and then we're going to edit this. And now you can see that these are different fields because I have different template fields in my deals than I have in my contacts. So these deal fields here, now what I would suggest is that you go through every field that you have in open to close that you want the agent to see, and you create that as a custom field in your deals over in follow-up boss. And then you match up inspection period with inspection, or inspection date with inspection date, and zip code with zip code, and year built with year built, and earnest money amount with earnest money amount. And you can literally sync your whole open to close to the deal over in follow-up boss so that your agents have full access over there on what's happening in the transaction. So as you update it in open to close, it's going to update over in follow-up boss and the deal automatically. If they try to update something in follow-up boss, it will not sync back to open to close. The reason for that is we don't want automation to be set off by an agent. As I say all the time, I'm an agent. I can say this, we're not very detailed and we make a lot of mistakes. And so I'd much rather have a very detailed admin, TC, operations manager person changing the stuff in open to close and syncing back to follow-up boss than vice versa. So right now it's not bi-directional, and that's on purpose. We do have the ability to do it, but we just choose not to because that's what you guys wanted when we surveyed you originally. So that's how you do it. Hopefully that was helpful, Tina. If you need any more information, feel free to follow up with support. There's definitely some follow-up boss. Like if you go into the support center here, so if you click on the little person icon, go to the support center and type in follow-up boss. There's actually there's a whole section right here. You don't even have to type it in. Go to follow-up boss, and you got a bunch of different videos here and articles. So hopefully that will help as well. All right. Let's see what we got here. disabled chat. I'm not sure what that means. The chat is disabled. Yeah, and that's yeah, we don't want anyone putting anything in chat. Just go ahead and put it in the Q&A so that we can make sure we get all your questions answered. So all right, yeah, let me get rid of that. What's the difference between subtasks and parent-child? Yeah, great question, Craig. Let me go over to the actually, let me go to a transaction here. And just so you guys know here, I'm doing it the wrong way just because I'm out of practice. But if you guys, a shortcut way, so when you click on this button next to the transaction and you want to go into, if you want to go into your tasks or into your fields or into whatever, if there's something specific you need to get into just temporarily, and you don't want to have to go all the way into the transaction and back out, like you're going to want to say, let's go to whatever you want to go to. So let's go to the fields. Let's say we want to get into, that's going to pull open the field so you don't actually have to go into the transaction. So this little button is super helpful if you want to go a specific place. All right, so let's go in tasks. And so here's subtasks. You can see 3 example subtasks here. You have the ability to say must be completed before parent task can be completed. So you can say, I have to have the TC check these 3 things off before I can check off that main task that this sits under. Or maybe you don't care. What I like to use these for is instructions for the TC. Don't forget to do this, you know, don't forget to do that and make sure this gets updated or whatever. Like this is a great place to put some additional instructions that an experienced TC, that's why I leave this unchecked, an experienced TC will know, but an inexperienced person that maybe needs a little bit of help, instead of having to put it over here, and you could definitely do this, but over in the internal details, you can also put instructions. You can put those here on how to do the task with links and all kinds of cool stuff. But this is another way you could do it. Or if it's like print out the MLS sheet, you know, this could be go to MLS and log in with agent information, click on this button, hit the print button, do this, do that, just in case. So you can give them step by step on how to do that task. Parent-child, a little bit different, just 2 separate tasks, right, that are contingent upon each other. So this task has to be done before this task. That would be parent-child. The advantage to parent-child is that you're able to put triggers in both. So with subtasks, you can't have like go to MLS and then when you check that off, have a trigger go out. There's no triggers on subtasks, but there are triggers on the regular tasks. So sometimes it's better to have a parent-child relationship on 2 tasks. This one has to be done before this one, but both of them have emails and templates and things that need to get added when they're checked off. So that's the main difference. If anyone on my team has any thoughts on that or anything that you've been seeing that are super helpful on those, feel free to chime in before I go on to this next question.
No, that was good.
Okay. Let's see here. Is it best practice to have a new intake form completed every time the status changes, or do you use the same transaction in OTC throughout the transaction, such as pre-listing tasks, and it goes under contract, and we have buyer agent information, title, lender? Is it best to finish out the pre-listing task list, update the status to pre-listing completed, and then do a new intake form for seller under contract? So great question. The way that I like to do it, and plenty of these in past things, so feel free to go back and watch all the different iterations, because I may have said some things that I'm not going to say here or vice versa. The past 3 or 4 of these, we've went over this. So I'm going to go through it pretty quickly, but feel free to reference back as well. And all of these, one thing I do want to mention, our content team does an incredible job with these. So if you go into the support and go to webinars and go down to Workshop Wednesdays, I love this. They give a little summary of what we went over. And not only that, when you click on it and you press play on this, you can see all the little things. We've talked about automations tied to fields. We talked about email templates, merge fields. So you can see all the little segments throughout the video so you can jump right to where you want to go. So I just think this is awesome that they do this. So it's a reference for you guys, and they put in some extra time on that so that you guys don't have to spend a lot of time searching through these videos. So Craig, getting back to your question. So what I like to do is I like to fill out an intake form for the listing. Okay. Agent goes out to the house. They get the listing appointment. and they submit an intake form. And that's going to tell me all the listing things, right? They need staging. They need, this is how you get in the house. They got a dog in the laundry room that's going to bite you, all the stuff that you need to know. When it goes under contract, what I like to do, go to properties, is take this status and have listing under contract or something like that in your status. You can think of whatever you want, just so it doesn't confuse you, because you don't want it, if you're using the reporting, you don't want under contract to be the same as listing under contract or something like that. These listing under contract, there's kind of a placeholder. So, because what happens is once it goes under contract, I want my agent to fill out a new form that this is under contract, okay? The reason I want to do that is because if that transaction cancels, I want to be able to cancel out that under contract and go right back to my listing under contract and change it to active again. And so now this is a pristine listing that I have, and you can name them different. You can come in here and you can click on this button and you can add listing at the end, or you could do an L in parentheses or something for your listings under contract, or you think of something that you like. Just be careful. This merge field is contract title. And so if you do change it in here, you are going to change what appears in the emails. Okay. So going back to where we were, this may be listing under contract, and then it's the same exact address and it's under contract or pending or whatever you guys call it in your state. The nice part about that, like I said, is this cancels. Well, now you just cancel this and go right back to the listing. I don't want to have to, think about what documents I brought in afterwards, what fields I filled out, and like go back and try to recreate that and put everything back to the way it was. And even if I did do that, then you just lost that. You may want to keep a record of all those canceled transactions. I know in Arizona, we have to keep a record of them. I don't know about everywhere else, but that's probably a legal requirement in most states. So you want to have a record of that. The one thing you could do is you could come in here if you don't want to fill out intake forms and just copy this transaction. So if you go into a transaction under this little green thing here, you can say duplicate, and then you can create a new transaction and then just fill out the fields if you want to right in the transaction if you're not having your agents fill it out. The other way to do this, and this is something I'm going to be testing here in the next month. I was just talking to Daniel over at Interface, and he's going to set my team up with some outside intake forms because I just want to test the difference. And what we're going to do is have an outside intake form. And when my agents fill that out, and so those intake forms are going to be in Follow Up Boss. I use that as my CRM, but you could have it in whatever CRM you want. They would fill out that form. That information is going to come in. And then when they go under contract, they're going to fill out another piece of information. It's automatically going to copy this transaction for me, automatically change my stages, and then bring in that new information in. And the advantage to that is going to be you're going to have all the information from the listing in the new under contract as well. So you don't have, if you do have some like, how do I get in this house and stuff, you don't have to transfer that over to the under contract. It's already in there. So there are a couple different ways to skin a cat here, I guess, depending on how your workflow is and how many agents you have, and if you're an independent TC versus a team or whatever that case is, you may want to email support and we can dive into this a little bit more for you, Craig. But, those are kind of the 3 or 4 options that we have. And then if one kind of excites you or gets you thinking this is the one for me, let us know. We can dive a little bit deeper into that with you and try to figure out what's going to be best for you and your team. Likewise, anyone else on this call that may have a different approach, we're happy to, look at those individually with you and talk a little strategy. Okay. For Smartblocks, do you suggest a different smart block for every email template? Example would be there is an execution date for every file. Do you suggest I create a buyer execution date and seller execution date for seller emails, or can I just use execution date in both buyer and seller emails? Totally up to you. Depends on your flow. You have to think through it for yourself and say, okay, do I ever use the field execution date? Do I use it simultaneously with buyers and sellers? Like, is there any advantage to having that separated? In some cases there is, and in this case, I can't see a reason to do it. But I may not be thinking, I may have to think about this one a little bit, but like, I'm trying to think of other ones. Go ahead. Yes, please.
Potentially, if I am going to try track buyer execution versus seller execution, I would look at your contract. When you're looking at a contract to buy and sell, typically execution date is when you have mutual execution from both buyer and seller, versus your brokerage contract, like listing agreement, you just need seller execution. So I potentially would have execution date for my under contracts, again, mutual execution, and then maybe a separate field for my listing agreement execution date. Again, depending on your use case, like Andrew's saying, you may want to find what works best for you there.
Sounds really morbid, execution date. It's like, man, you're in trouble. Don't list with that agent. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, so that's the suggestion, Craig. If you want to dive a little deeper on that, we're more than happy to, but I don't think you need it for that unless you run up upon Jana's situation. But there are cases where you really want to think through these fields before you create them and just start spraying them out through the program. You want to think like, is there ever a case where this is different? And is there ever a scenario where I'm going to want to? If there's a scenario, one scenario or two scenarios that you're going to need to, just put two in there and just don't use the one until you need it. But at least it's in there and it's the right way in your email templates. You're not going to have to go back and change everything. Now, the one thing I would say, if you've already done that and you have one, and you're like, ah, crap, I really need to. Well, the one thing that we did add, or the dev team added actually, is the field editor. And in the field editor, we have this inspect if you're on version 2 pricing. So feel free, you can always change over to version 2 if you're on version 1. And you can come down to this and see exactly where this field is throughout. So if I wanted to split this date up for some reason, I could come in here and say, well, this date appears here. Let me go check this email template. Let me go check this smart block. Let me go check this smart block. Let me go check this. Let me go check this tab, and you can go through these and look at all the different places where this field appears. And this is super helpful because before it was kind of like a black box where you put it in there and you better have a record of where you put it or else you weren't finding it again unless you search through all your stuff. So this button has saved my life numerous times, or I guess it didn't save my life, but it saved a lot of time. So I would love to see the commissions and or reporting sections discussed. An example use case for reporting would be helpful. Oh man, Jana, we really need to do a case study with a couple of the people we were talking about yesterday. They are just killing it with this. Kaylee, let me go through a basic one with you, but let us put that on our list for the next couple months to do a case study with someone, because we have a couple people using this at an extremely high level that are kind of blowing our minds. Actually, we didn't even think about some of the stuff that they're doing. So I'll go through it on a basic level, and then we'll try to make that a priority to put at least a little video from someone on this. All right. Let me go to commissions first, I guess. You want to say anything about this before I start, Jana?
No, I think your case study suggestion is really good. We are seeing a lot of possibilities with it. It is very, very customizable. I think biggest suggestion I give most users is figure out what type of commission tracking you want to have. If you have a CDA you're already going to follow, pull that up as you're building out your account. It does make it quite a bit easier to have an example to build out versus just trying to build something to see how it works. Try to get a real life use case.
Sorry, I must have follow-up also open somewhere because I'm ringing. So hold on one second while I try to find where this ring is coming from.
One thing while Andrew's pulling this up too is I have found that a lot of users working with the new commission tool and reporting tool are starting to add more fields to your account. And so I would have that expectation that you may not have all the fields that you're going to use as you start to build out your commission templates, but definitely plan on adding them in and potentially, doing a little bit of a reorg on your commission fields depending on how many you create.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, here is a example of a commission, very basic. You can put some widgets in here to show like the people involved in the transaction or the closing date or whatever. These are all just add a widget, choose the title of what you want it to say, and then pick what field it's coming from. Put that in there. Here's a purchase amount that'll come over from the purchase amount. And in your templates, just know it'll say $100, I think, or 100,000, or I think it's $100 actually. And, but when you put it in the transaction, it's going to pull that purchase amount. So here's the GCI. We're doing 3.5% of the purchase price. And this is for just the listing side. And so we have the GCI, we have the broker split. So we're giving 10% to the broker. So if you notice these dotted lines, this is like the step it's in. So this one, broker split and team split, that's the first split, right? Because there's nothing else down there on that line. So the broker's getting 10, team's getting 90. That's good. It adds up to 100. We can all do that math. So $2,300 going to the broker, 21,000 going to the team. Now, how are we going to split it up? The team leader is going to get 10,000. Now, if I follow this line down, I'm going to ignore these two right now. Team leader is getting 10,400. The agent on the file is getting 35% of this. The team leader got 50. Agent's getting 15% or 35%. ISA is getting 10%. Showing agents getting 5%. 5 plus 10 plus 35 is 50 plus 50 is 100. So we're good on that one. And then if you come up here, you saw a further split from the team leader. The team leader is giving a transaction fee of $475 to his transaction coordinator, and they do a 1% donation on every file. So that's how I came up with these numbers. You have the step, you have the calculation, you have the step total. These are whether you want them to appear over in your CDA. So when I click the CDA button, it's going to create a PDF, and you're telling it, hey, I want this step to show, I want the calculation to show, and I want the step total right here to show. Okay. If you're ever having trouble with these and you're like, God, I just can't figure out how to do this, like something isn't working, something isn't clicking, it's typically because you need a, what do I want to call this? Like a ghost split almost. It's like you want to split something like 90-10, but the 10 doesn't matter, right? Let's say it's not a broker split. It's just a 10% that you need off to the side to work with later. Create a split. A split is usually your answer for anything that you can't do. Split that. Let's say we had to split this 10, 90-10 again, and we never use the 10. That's okay, because you can just uncheck these boxes and it just kind of sits off to the side. And then you can take that 90 and split it further. So until you get into this, you're probably not going to understand what I'm saying right now, but just remember, when in doubt, well, contact support. And second of all, think split. And even if you're not going to use one section of the split, it's totally okay. Now, when you go inside of these, this is really cool. So the one thing we wanted to do was make this description 100% custom, because we want you guys to be able to name it whatever you want. So GCI, maybe someone else calls it GCI this, whatever, right? Totally custom. You can do a percent, copy from a field, flat fee, like you have all these choices in here. You have the amount, whether it's an amount or percentage. And then when you come down here, let me look at some other ones here. Oh, this one's a split. Okay, so that one's not going to give me the option to edit it. Let me come in here. Here, you have all these options. So add a split, copy a field value. So basically you can pull field values into this from existing. So if you want your TC just to come over and fill out a field section of all the different numbers and then have it calculate over here, you can do that. All you have to do is say, hey, TC, put all the numbers in here. And then I'm going to open up this commission calculator, basically, and it's going to calculate all this for me. Or you can have it, you can put the totals in over here in the commission part and then have it sync back to the field. Now, one thing that we've noticed, just be careful, don't have two, Gianna, do you want to talk about the problem that we were having with two different commission templates applied to one transaction?
Yep. Yeah. So when we're syncing back field values with commission templates, whether it's in the same commission template or if it's in two different commission reports, because I could have one commission report for my internal breakdown, and then I could have a separate commission report for what I send a title. I don't want to use the same field when I'm syncing my field values. So let's say I have on one commission report, I'm syncing my end total, the net agent commission, back to a net agent commission field. I should only use that one time on this property in my commission reports. And the reason for that is the system can only sync values back to one field or one record at a time. So it's going to go with the most recently applied field that we've mapped out here. So if you guys run into an error where it's not syncing, that's what I would check out first with your reports.
Yep. And most people are only going to have one template applied, but just make sure that it's just one field, because it's going to get confused. It's going to be like, well, which one am I syncing here? Am I syncing this one or the one in the other? I did want to show you this screen as well. There's a little kind of transfer icon or whatever you want to call it. But in here, here's the math operator. So in these steps, you got the calculation, the operator, all that kind of stuff. 10%, that's my math operator. That's what I'm multiplying it by, right? And then I can choose a field to sync that to. And then the cool thing about it is the sync calculation now, this is going to tie into reporting. Originally, we didn't have this in reporting, and people were like, well, you know, it's great that you have a field called buyer agent commission, but I need to know how much, you know, Lynn got and Kaylee got and Craig got and Andrew got, and I need to split that up even further. So what we did, and I'll show you here in reporting in a second, is you can now assign a user to this calculation. So it's going to go look at all of those buyer commissions or buyer agent commissions, and then it's going to further split it up into who got those commissions. So Craig made, you know, 212,000 this year. Andrew only made 72,000 this year. And then Mary made 350,000. So now you can further divide that up. So that's what this assign user is for. You're assigning them to this sync calculation. Okay. So you can further divide up fields into individual people that received that amount. And then you have the sync split totals too. So you'll figure out ways to use these. I mean, it really depends on your process and how your brokerage or if you're independent, how the brokerages you're working for are using these, but a lot of cool stuff in here, and feel free to reach out to support if you get stuck. I mean, it's new. It's a little complicated to wrap your head around at first, but once you get going, the sky's the limit. We left it really open-ended as far as you could just make split upon split. I think it goes out 20 levels. So you got a lot of room to do custom stuff. The one thing that it does not do, and be aware of this, is caps. We do not do caps yet. Hopefully we'll get that in the future, but for right now, we don't have caps. So just be aware.
And while you're there too, can you click on the team leader arrow icon? I just kind of want to expand on the sync split total. And the two drop downs. Yep, that one. So when you have sync calculation, the middle one, that is going to be the total that you receive with the initial math operator calculation. So in this case, the 50% team lead split is going to be that middle amount. As you can see there, we have additional things being deducted from the team leader split. We have the transaction fee and the donation. So the bottom sync split total, that is after all deductions or additions have been made. So one's kind of like your gross and one's kind of like your net. So just be mindful which one you are syncing to your field values, and kind of specify with your fields if something is used for your gross commission amount versus your net commission amount, your actual take home pay. So just want to know.
Yeah, great point to point out, because I actually did that the first time I was doing it. I grabbed the wrong one. So cool. So let's go over to reporting real quick, and reporting is a little bit easier to explain. Let me go to, so you have all these different, these are like pages, right? We call them snapshots, but they're like pages. And then you can go into widgets, or I'm going to get onto the page, right? Contract status. And then each of these can be a widget. So now I can come in here and say, I want active, I want pending, I want my expired and closed. And so you build your report, and you can move these around. So, you know, you can move these around. Right now it's on 2023, and I haven't added a bunch of properties to this account. So I apologize. There's probably not going to be a lot in here. We'll make this one 2022. Nope, still nothing. Oh, because it's expired. Let me go to closed and do 2022. Okay, so we have one closed, and that's Brian, because it's this color. You can add whoever you want in here. So you can add whatever agents you want. And you can also report on users. I usually do these separately because a lot of these are going to have overlap in them. Andrew is the agent, and Adam could be working with Andrew on that transaction. So I might create a separate widget, one for agents, one for TCs, or one for admin or operations managers, or whoever you want to track on that side.
Can I caveat with that too?
Yes, definitely.
If both people are connected, agent and TC, it will count that property twice in the report, which is why you want to keep that separate.
Yep, for sure. And then, so what we're calculating on now is a contract status field, okay? But if I wanted to, I could have one of those line items from the commission be reported on. And what we would change is the field value to a commission value. Okay, so they're two separate things in our system. A field value is coming from your fields on the left. A commission value is coming from one of the line items that I showed you over in commissions, where you assign that agent to that buyer agent commission or whatever that was. So it's going to be two separate things here. You can change the year. You can set a date range. So the custom, quarters, whatever you want. Like, this is pretty flexible. You can do it by count or amount. So if I want to see what the amount was, I can have a separate widget right next to it. So he closed one deal, but it was $987,000. So that's awesome. Year reference. So this is kind of cool, because if you're saying you want to report on 2023, well, what date on this transaction do you want to report on? Is it the closing date? Is it the open date? Is it the inspection date? Is it whatever you want? So you can come in here and you can say this one's on the created date, but you may want to say the close date, which is pretty typical if you're doing contract status. So I'm going to do the close date on this, and then it might change this, because if you have something that opened in December, didn't close until January, well, that's going to make a difference in your reporting. So just be aware of that. And then you can reload. It'll come up here. It'll say build graph if you need to reload it. This graph JSON, this is for if you want to send a JSON file out of this graph. There's also a list JSON. If you're working with an API developer, they're going to want these JSON files, have access to those. But this is really cool too, this list. So if you're like, oh, that's great that they have 9 pending, but like, what are they? Well, just come down here to list, and it's going to pop up in the side panel, and it's going to have the list of 9. It's going to tell you who from the thing. It's going to tell you what you basically have full functionality in here. Now you can open up, say, I want to see the fields for this real quick. It'll pop it open. I can change a field, go right back to where I was. So that is in there. Anything else you want to add to reporting, Jana?
Yeah, I would say list, that list value or that list option is really, really helpful. One, when you are reviewing your reports. Personally, I would use that for any one-on-ones or just checking in on my properties for KPIs, but it is also really helpful for troubleshooting your reports. As you can see, not only does it include the agent or user's name and then the month that that property was pulling in on, but also a tally count and those quick reference links. So really powerful as you guys are building out those reports and comparing your numbers. I did want to kind of expand on the commission reports a little bit more. Those are going to be available for dollar amount field widgets. So as you can see with some of these here, we don't have the option to change that to a commission widget. That is because it is based off of a contract status field. So if you're trying to build reports off of your commission calculations, how we're syncing those, it does need to be, again, a dollar amount field. And the thing that really helped me differentiate when would I want to use commissions versus a field type is your field type. Those reports are based off of access information for that property. So if you're the main team user assigned or you're the main agent portal user assigned. So if you need to have more capabilities for your commission tracking beyond those access points, that's when we're seeing the commission option being really beneficial. So
yep, cool. So here it is too. I just pulled up the commission totals over here. This field could be a field or it could be a commission. So you can choose between those two depending on what your situation is. All right. All right, I think that's enough for that right now. We'll if you have any more questions on commissions or reporting, support can definitely dive a little deeper with you on that one. We are adding active listings and a separate property when they go to pending, as was suggested. When the property closes, what do you suggest we do with the active listing folder? Delete, what's best practice? Yeah, a couple different things you could do. You could delete it, or you could put it in a status that just won't affect anything. So my preference is don't delete. Like I don't know. I'm just paranoid. I never delete anything. I put it under archive folders and stuff. And then, after 10 years, I'll go ahead and delete it, but call me ultra paranoid. But what I do is I just put it in a status. What was it called? Close active listings or close listings. I don't know. I had some word on it that doesn't affect any of my reporting, and I exclude from all of my property. So like that, whatever you put it in at the end, whatever that status is, you don't want that to appear in any of your tables or reports, or just one, right? Just in case you need to look at them for some reason. But I would just put it in some status. It doesn't even matter, like old listing, whatever. original listing, something like that, that you're just not going to report on. What you don't want is go into your reports and then all of a sudden you have them counting double the amount of transactions that you closed. So don't put it in closed for sure. Or you could delete it. Like if you're comfortable with that, delete it. You already have the other stuff. But the way that I do it right now, I don't have that information on like, how do I access the house and like that kind of stuff. I leave that in the listing. And we usually put a link, I think, to the listing so they can toggle back and forth. So if you do have information that's not in your under contract, then I would just say find a status that you can put it into that's not going to affect anything.
One thing just for COA audit, you could do a mix of both of those scenarios. Change it to a status that you can then export every month or every quarter. So you have a backup of your field data, but you can get it out of your system, like Andrew's saying.
Yeah. The thing I always worry about is like you start having things in different places, and then say you're using open to close in 3 years from now, and these people they bought that house and now they want to sell, and now you don't have that information available to you, or vice versa. Like I like to keep it in one place, but yeah, another good practice, honestly, is to export all of your information. Kind of what Jan was alluding to is like get all of your information out on a daily, weekly, monthly, whatever you're comfortable with. But like have an API guru set up something where they can pull all this into a Google Sheet for you. And then we have a backup of all your data. If you ever leave open to close or whatever, hopefully you don't do that. But if you ever did leave, like now you have a backup of all your data. So cool. Craig says, sorry about that. I'll reference the past one. I'm not sure what he was saying there.
I think it was from the past one.
That's what we currently do. 2 intake forms. When one comes in as a listing, the other one's an executed contract. Just wanted to make sure I'm doing the best practice instead of doing what I've always done. As always, appreciate. Yeah, no problem, Craig. Yeah, it's a tricky one in the system, and hopefully we're going to have some other solutions for that in the future, where multiple intakes could come in and maybe automatically make duplicates and things like that. We just don't have the time right now. We have too many irons in the fire, I guess, is the best way to put it. Too many projects going on to concentrate on something that's working fine right now. So, but yeah, look for that in the future for sure. If you duplicate the transaction, do all the dates and documents transfer over with it? Yeah, everything's going to come in exactly the way it was. Trying to think if anything changed. The only thing that's going to change is going to be your property email address, and there's 2 other things I think that are different, but they're logical. Like if you think through it, it's not going to inhibit you in any way. It's just like the email address for the transaction changes because you can't have the same one on 2 transactions. Can you break down the integration of Skyslope when you're dealing with multiple Skyslope accounts and individual files with those different brokerages? Yes, I can do a general one, but we're working on, Jenna, what are we going to do something client facing for those things that we've been doing on Tuesdays? Are we going to put like more stuff in the help center, or how are we disseminating that integration information?
For updates with the integrations?
Just like deeper understanding on how all the integrations work. So just so everyone knows, we're kind of going through all of our integrations too. Like we don't really deal with what happens on their side. Like as soon as we send that API connection to them, that's kind of on them to deal with. And, some of them don't have the best API connections or endpoints, I should say, for us to push things to. So internally, we're trying to build our support center to give you the most information possible on these in a place to go. One of the places is in here. I just don't know if we've updated this lately.
No, we will be going through and doing kind of a revamp of some of our integration content, essentially going through and doing a deep overview of our integrations and just making sure that all of the steps, all of the updates are documented. I do believe there was an update with Skyslope, in particular, the lender contact record in Skyslope. Matthew, definitely feel free to chime in on this one. That we have had some updates too. So I would keep an eye out for a change log as we're getting those updates posted there. And then as we go through and update our article content, we should see those details reflected. But I would say we are also implementing some group setup sessions where we can go through all of our integrations in more detail and also direct you to some of those articles. But maybe jumping the gun a little bit on this, but we are also looking at a revamp with our knowledge base and support center, so that way we can have a little bit more of a focus on everything to do with Skyslope or everything to do with brokerment. So that will be coming down the line. We just don't have a set timeline for that piece.
Cool. Right now you can go to the help center, type in Skyslope. There's very detailed articles on like adding contacts, importing contacts, you know, anything you need is probably in here. I'm going to go through a general, but if you need like detail stuff, definitely contact support, look through these. Let's see here. Can we use, yeah, you can use more than one Skyslope for sure. So here's how you do it. So when you come into here, you are going to manage your profiles here. And so you can create as many. So currently I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 profiles in here. And then I can create a new API profile. So you could have 50 agents you're working with if you're an independent TC and have 50 accounts hooked up, which is awesome. Just make sure you get that API secret that's important, that's required, as well as the API key. And so once you hook those up, then it's really easy because all you're doing is coming into a transaction. And let's use, let's see which transaction I want to use. I think this one's hooked up to Skyslope. All right, this may be .loop. Let me see. Yeah, it's .loop. But it's the same diffunctionality. So I'm going to go into .loop. And then you can link these. So you can link. Actually, let me go into a different property. Let me see one that maybe isn't linked to anything. Okay, here you go. So when you come in here, now I can say, hey, I want to link the Skyslope file that already exists over in Skyslope to this open to close transaction, or I want to export this open to close transaction and create a new transaction over in Skyslope. So there are some things you're going to want to watch out for, limits in the API capabilities of Skyslope. There's some things on listings where documents kind of work different than under contract transactions. So definitely familiarize yourself with those. But you can say, hey, I want to export it. I want to export it to the me profile. And I want to send over a sale, not a listing. And then boom, I hit this. And now it's going to go over to, and it's going to create that over in the me profile. So if you have like 100 agents you're working with, all of your profiles would be in here and you can hook up as many as you want. Same for DocuSign, same for .loop, same for brokerment, I think. Yeah, same for brokerment. So all of them should give you capabilities of multiple accounts. So cool. Yeah, super helpful. Thanks. Listing, value option, and reporting is amazing. Yeah, that makes it a lot better. And then you can calculate by agent too, which is, you know, what people want. You don't want to be limited to a field. So cool. We are out of questions and we are 15 minutes early. So feel free. Pretty small group today. So feel free, if you put a question on there, I'll go ahead and answer it before we're done. No one puts up a question in the next 3 or 4 minutes, we'll go ahead and end it. As always, thanks guys for being here. Appreciate all the questions. Makes my life a lot easier so I don't have to think about what to say. And we're answering questions that you actually care about. So.
Hey, Andrew.
Yes.
Can you briefly just touch on new search bar?
No, I was trying to avoid it actually, but yeah, I will.
Okay.
No, so I was actually talking to dev team this morning. We actually made one change to this, which is now you can create, if you're on contacts, you can create partial, let me see here. Create partial phone numbers, which wasn't working before. I don't have any contacts with that in there, but let me see if I have I think I have a 5555, maybe. Come on. Yeah, there we go. So now you can do a partial phone number, and you can switch back and forth from properties and contacts. The reason we had to make this switch was speed. A lot of our bigger accounts were really slow when they were searching through the old way. Now, something I did talk to the dev team about this morning that may solve the issue between both types of people, right? If I leave this on contacts, next time I come back to it, it's still going to be on contacts, which is great. That's probably the way you want it. What we're thinking about adding is an all here. So if you're used to coming in here and searching for everything at once, contacts and properties and everything, and you really like the way that that functioned, and you're a smaller team that it's not going to affect time time it takes to generate those searches, because you got to think it's searching through everything. And this whole thing with, if I search Meg, it's searching Meg for anywhere in any text everywhere. And so it's a long search. And so we just don't want it to bog down your systems. But in the future, in the next probably 2 or 3 months, we're going through this with a fine-tooth comb, and you're going to see some changes throughout the next couple months. So just be aware that you may see some changes in here, but all the changes will be to make it easier on you guys. And I've got a lot of feedback on Facebook that everyone really liked the old search bar and the way it functioned. It was just super slow. So we're trying to incorporate a way to have the best of both worlds and give you the option. If you have a humongous account with, hundreds of thousands of contacts in there, then you can come to the contacts page and search this way, versus someone with a super small account that's only doing 5 transactions, 10 transactions a month. Well, then you can just use the all button, and it's not going to affect your speed that much. So that's the gist of it. Now you're going to, say properties, say 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you're going to hit enter. And you don't have to hit this button over here. Just someone mentioned that as soon as you're done typing, just hit the enter button and it's going to search. But there you go. So now it's going to pull up everything with a 1, 2, 3, 4 in there. So anything to add to that, Jenna?
No, that was perfect. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, a lot of feedback on this, and I apologize to the smaller accounts, but it was just becoming a huge lag issue. And as you get bigger and start adding more contacts and properties, it was going to happen in your account eventually. So we had to do something to mitigate that problem before it became widespread. So while you do lose a little bit of ease, I guess, in the process, it's an extra click, but it's going to be worth it in the long run. And hopefully you'll see some improvements to this over the next however long, and we'll get this working in a fashion that works for everyone and works really well. Cool. All right. Well, haven't seen any more questions besides that, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Appreciate everyone being here. Same time, same place next week. I will not be here again. I will be at the Follow Up Boss Mastermind. If anyone's going to be there, I will be there all week. So we will see you there if you're there. And if not, you will hopefully be here talking to Jen and Matthew. So talk to you next week. Have a good day.